So in this module, we'll talk about reporting, recommendations, and also revised questions. So one thing that I now advocate for is actually a digital project diary. It's basically a shared document that tracks any project progress, challenges, any decisions that were made, including maybe notes about specific conversations, as well as insights throughout the project. So it's basically a logbook that helps you document various milestones, tracks the progression of a project, including identifying and listing out the data sources, any analyses and learnings or results, as well as providing transparency among largely the project team and contributors. Finally, it assists with reproducibility as we take detailed notes or log various important pieces of information. It allows for others to be able to follow along and also reproduce these results. So I prefer something that can be shared easily, right? So it could be Google Slides, and it's not as if there's a copy that's being emailed around. I prefer sort of a document that can be easily shared, but that can be in various formats, including even a coding notebook, right? We have the ability to write notes and provide written documentation within that. So that would be a form of a project diary as well. So generally, this is just a sample of what you might put in there. So you might have the introduction, including the organization or company, overview of the business model, and also any sort of general history of that organization, general project objectives and why you're being engaged. So this when I say organization, could be division area, it could be a certain function area or process area. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're working externally for some company or some business. The parties that are going to be involved, including your sponsor or who you're basically working with and who will be working with you, as well as contact details or contact information. Finally, you want to put in your general scope as well. So the initial project detail, you want to put in your problem statement. So in this case, you're being more precise and detailed the project objectives. So what do we want to accomplish? Also any internal documents provided by the client, including data sources as well. A background around the industry or market, and also any external resources that were sourced externally, not provided directly by your sponsor or the client organization. So you want to articulate the business questions here in detail. So these need to be translated basically from conversations or interactions with the sponsor. Your initial hypothesis or approach, so what do you intend to do, what's your general plan, and what additional resources or data would you need to execute that. Finally, you want to include your project plan, so that should include a timeline, also who's going to take care of what, or what are the roles as part of the project. So once you actually have data, you want to identify those sources and also how that data was generated or collected. So in that case, you may list out certain individuals, certain software systems, Also, if you have various data sources that tie together, or in other words, they may be merged or joined, you may want to include a entity relationship diagram that shows the different tables or data sets or sources, the variables that you intend to analyze, and also how they would be merged, collated, or joined. So finally, you also want to look at the structure. So what are the different variables, the data types, and also were there samples or a sample extracted from a population. So what are the number of records? That would also sort of fall into the sample size. Then you want to explore the data. So create your charts, tables, profile. So we talked about that in an earlier module. And look at some summary statistics as well. So that's a good opportunity to look at any initial relationships patterns, also identify any quality issues that you may need to address. So in the next session, that's where you have sort of refined your data, and you want to produce any key metrics, descriptives, including any relevant charts or tables. Also, any initial trends or patterns observed with your sort of more final or more refined data sets or data set. And just as a note, these will sort of differ from the EDA, as there should be very clear titles as to what should be taken away from these results. So for example, if you're looking at sales, you might have a title that says sales declined by 5% over the past 5 years based on some data source that you analyzed. So the next slide, this is, in the next slide you might have another title right there. There's a sort of drill down. This is due to a decline in sales in this category as shown by the summary of sales by category over time, right? So you have a overall picture and then a diagnostic follow-up. In this case, you want to identify any potential actionable insights. So what can your sponsor, client, or organization change to address some of these results, or what are some follow-up steps? And those actually may be data related, right? So you may say, hey, we've seen this. Is there maybe another source, or is there, do we need to collect additional data? Finally, you want to discuss how the findings align with the project objectives that you defined earlier. From there, you want to do your more empirical analyses. So this means statistical tests and any more advanced techniques. You want to interpret those findings, again, in the context of the objectives. Be mindful of your audience, right? So you may not have a technical audience. So when you translate statistical results or hypotheses testing, you want to translate that into layman's terms in some settings. Finally, any limitations or assumptions that you made, this may require you to go back to the original data and address any adjustments that were made. The final part would be the results and recommendations. You should have a clear executive summary, any key findings, insights, and also actionable recommendations as detailed as possible. And then any visualizations, that would include tables and charts, as well as a technical appendix and backup as well. So remember that you will likely have to transfer something to a sponsor or client, and this may come in a form of a report, but the majority of the final sort of deck, so it's often now decks that are used or slides, will basically come from the last section, right? So that'll be your biggest section or major section. That's basically your final presentation. So the remaining 20% will actually be summarized from previous sections, which is you have this nice sort of logbook that you can pull from. And then when you do transfer that, make sure it's a locked or PDF version. And that's really to prevent any unauthorized changes, right? You're providing a sort of independent summary, and it also maintains the integrity of your work, right? So make sure you're making sure that no one else is going to go in and edit those results or manipulate those results. Also, it might be the case that someone might want to reword something. There should be a conversation before that actually happens. It is an art. There's no sort of rule book, but it will improve over time as you get more experience and receive feedback as well. Finally, as I mentioned, make sure you're sort of speaking the right language. So if you're reporting to a technical boss, right, you'll actually have more technical discussions throughout the project. But when you're providing information to non-technical stakeholders, make sure you're trying to tailor to their knowledge or skill set, right? So you want to avoid technical jargon or sort of heavy discussion of p-values to a precise number. Sort of translate and function as a translator in that setting. Also, groups have different communication preferences, but generally these can help shape your approach. Your structure should actually be driven by main points related to the project objectives and also the key business metrics that matter to that particular organization. Finally, always conclude with some final recommendations. This may lead to some action items and follow-up steps, and you want to make sure that they are tangible, direct, and clear, and again, tied to the initial project objective and key business metrics. So here's an example report out. And so the title here is How to Win with the Shark Tank, or Win in the Shark Tank, Insights from the Data. Suppose that you're doing a sort of presentation for potential entrepreneurs that were thinking about pitching in the Shark Tank. You might provide them with insights based on data from previous or historical episodes, right, or pitches. So you have an intro here, and you have also some highlighted questions, right? How can you increase your chances of securing a deal? What types of businesses are most likely to attract sharks? And how much equity should you offer? And what deal terms are realistic? So you also call out what data you used right away, and you're going to examine the investment trends, industry success rates, deal sizes, and strategies of the most successful entrepreneurs. So you have kind of a direct agenda here, right? So you're being very direct about what questions you're going to answer, so that the reader is actually not left with, oh, well, it's kind of broad. What is this presentation really about? So we're starting with this right away, and then we're getting into our detailed objective. So data-driven insights to help entrepreneurs refine their pitches, understand investor preferences, and maximize their chances of landing a deal. Whether you're preparing for a pitch or simply curious about investment patterns, these insights will give you an edge. So then again, now we're being direct in terms of who should be the consumer of this information, and who is that party that this would help or assist in terms of people, or in this case it's entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs that may eventually pitch in the tank. So then you go into your key findings, and we can see here I have kind of a sort of by question, right? So by question or sort of by area that I introduced earlier. So in this case, we're looking at the likelihood of success, so overall deal rate, just over 50%. And also just a point here is that not all deals actually close after the show. So that's one sort of caveat, right? So we're making a caveat with one of our findings, right? So this is important that we're transparent and we're clear around any assumptions or any sort of additional information that may assist people in consuming this insight. All right, so key findings, 2, which industries are most successful? In this case, I actually have a kind of active title, right? Some industries have a higher likelihood. In fact, lifestyle and home has the highest success, right, at just over 60%. And you'll see that I actually mix in both tables and graphs. So with the third one, how much investment do entrepreneurs typically seek and receive? And this provides some key statistics, right? The average amount requested, average equity, average deal amount, average equity given up. So you can see that we can translate this as that on average, you're expected to give up about 27%, right? About 27%. And also the average equity offer is around 13%. So the fourth finding is who are the most active sharks? And then again, you can see here that this is very similar from a previous chart. It shows Mark Cuban is currently the leader at over 40 million invested. Again, I'm tying each of these findings to the questions that I defined earlier, so folks can follow along. And then the fifth finding, does gender influence deal success? And this really addresses this fifth question, right? So male entrepreneurs, 53% rate of success, female 60%, mixed gender 55%. And I'm also detailing here that this is actually a statistically significant outcome, right? So these percentages are pretty close, but the fact that there is a statistically significant outcome, it can actually translate or suggest that female-led businesses have a slightly higher success rate, and that is not due to random chance. Finally, you can see here is how can we actually use these insights, right? So how can entrepreneurs use these insights? So you see very detailed information here, right? So tailoring the business for shark interest. So this is specific to industry. Make sure you prepare your financials and valuation correctly or carefully. So this is to address the sort of equity given up, and also know the sharks, right? So there's certain sharks that are drawn to certain particular industries. Obviously, we saw that Mark Cuban is the highest investor. And then finally, focus on a strong business model. So those are the sort of actionable recommendations or actionable insights. So then you have some final thoughts, right, to wrap this up. But that's just a general short presentation that kind of shows you how you would progress. And it is intended to be sort of direct, concise, and also engaging as well. So finally, there could be a revised question and follow-up work, but there's some tips here. Make sure you review your analysis, right? People may notice discrepancies. Be prepared for scrutiny. There were resources involved in this project, so you will get scrutinized for any analyses or results you present on. Make sure you take detailed notes, so document every step. This is why we have this diary, right? Double check numbers, double check these numbers. Also expect follow-up questions, right? So you may actually have to go back and do some additional work. Have this image here from Marty Kahn. It's from the show House of Lies, right? He talks about this concept of after work. Obviously, there's a financial benefit of in a consulting setting of doing additional work afterwards, right? So he gets really excited about that after work component. Industry-specific insights matter, right? So some stakeholders may want analyses tailored to their industry or their sector. So just be mindful of that. Some of your initial analyses might lead to regression or predictive models. So that might be a natural progression if that's one objective is to predict or forecast. Finally, the follow-up work, I already mentioned this, right, is in a consulting setting, that's common, very common as well, right? that there's a lot of follow-up work, or maybe potentially minor follow-up work that obviously you hopefully would get paid for. So here's some final tips. Don't rely on memorization, so always have your numbers available for reference. Avoid ad hoc requests, so your client or sponsor may be inclined to want to look at a number a different way or look at a summary a different way and ask you to do that on the spot. I would try to avoid those. I've been in many situations where that's actually led to providing the wrong numbers or the wrong metrics because you are sort of rushing and you think that you're doing the right thing and trying to make that individual happy, but in fact it does cause you or could create some exposure on your end. Yeah, so it's okay to sort of delay answers as well, and basically just respond. I'll look into this after this meeting or after this call. Don't try to hypothesize about something that your client questions. There may be explanations, but you don't want to speculate so much that it doesn't necessarily make sense when it's tied to the actual results or so the actual business operations or organizational operations. Yeah, so along those lines, stick to facts, not theories, and also I sort of mentioned this is concise. This is obviously a more, I'd say, a very recent trend, right? Folks want to, consume information quickly and concisely, and so they can make decisions or sort of take action. So, seen a very recent trend of shorter is better, right? That would be the way I would say that. All right, and that is the end of this module.